So I figured out that maybe I would discuss some other things. I mean, it's kind of a departure from the music or toilet talk or a lot of things that I've done. But, I do have a serious side to me as well. And a lot of people have been asking at times about, why I believe what I believe or my faith and different things. And I thought maybe this would be a great opportunity to be able to share it with you guys. So I'll tell you that I was brought up in a culturally and religiously mixed household. Um, my father, uh, he is Iranian, Persian, right? Born in Iran, in Tehran, Iran. And it's a majority Muslim country. My dad being the minority, him and his family, them being Jewish. Okay, so I'm half Persian, Jewish, and my mother is mostly Italian, although she has a mix of some other things. And she was, or she is, my mother is Christian. She's a Christian Italian. She was born in New York, so she's an American. And my dad is also an American now, but was not born in the United States. And From what I've heard, when they first got together, neither one was particularly religious or that much of a person of faith. So their difference in theology didn't really bother them or affect their relationship too much. In this video, I'd like to get into why I believe what I believe, but I wanted to give you guys some background and how I was raised. When I was very young, my mother became a born-again Christian. And I felt that it was too much, even as a kid, overboard, too much of the nonsense. And my dad wasn't thrilled about that. He wasn't particularly religious in his Judaism. However, I could tell he didn't like how overboard my mom became. So, over time, my mom kind of fell out of that. And not that she fell out of her faith. She always kept her faith, but she wasn't so crazy fanatic, thank God, right? Because I think that shit's too much. Then I don't know exactly how long ago, but close to 10 years now ago, my dad lost his father, which was my grandfather. My grandfather was very religious in Judaism. And when my dad lost his father, my dad then picked up that mantle, and he became very religious and very steeped in the religion and the traditions of Judaism and going to temple every week and all that. So and then, when coronavirus started, then my mom became even stronger in her faith, and my sister likewise. So I always kind of grew up in a household with a lot of that going on, especially when I was younger. My mom trying to throw all that stuff in my face. And I remember I've been to churches and I've been to temples and I've been to other places of other faiths as well, because it always fascinated me, right? But one thing, mostly churches, but one thing about a lot of these churches that bothered me a lot is I'm me, right? And I'm a sinner, and I'm great at it, right? And I love sinning, and I'm like one of the best sinners ever. Paul said he's like the best. I think I'm even better than him when it comes to sinning, right? And a lot of these churches, all they would do is bash you over the head. I remember, you watch porn, you're going to hell. You cuss, you're going to hell. You listen to music with cussing in it, you're going to hell. You do this, you're going to hell. You do that, your hair's too long, your hair's too short. Woman's wearing too much makeup, she's not wearing enough makeup. Her dress is too long, her dress is too short. I mean, you know, it was constantly about pleasing man in the guise and the disguise of pleasing God. And it was dinned in my brain that that's really all what Christianity was about, and that it was about not doing this, and but you have to do this, but don't you? You better not do that, but you have to, a bunch of that stuff. So then, over time, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been to different churches where they would just try to get into my life and tell me what to do and how to act and judge me for this and for that. And it was just a lot of crap, which I realize now. But I thought that's what it was about. That's what the religion was about. When I was about 16 years old, I entered a school for troubled children. And it was from living in a place that I was sent to for also having not the best behavior. And this place for troubled children, coincidentally, the name of the place was called Crossroads. And I say coincidentally because, years later I ended up, which I still now work with Bone Thugs and Harmony, and their biggest hit being Crossroads, right? So now I always had a passion for art, not just music, but drawing and all that. I always had a passion for that. And I had a teacher, and this was a small school, maybe like 50 kids in the whole school. They're all gangbangers, maybe 2 or 3 girls in the whole school. It was a miserable place. It was, like I said, for special type children misbehaving. And I had this teacher who I'm actually friends with to this day. His name is John Wolf. Some of you may know him. He drew the hand with the gun logo for CNO. He's responsible for so much CNO art that we constantly use for lots of things. But back then he was just my teacher. And I never assumed that he was a Christian, right? Because there were things about him that I was taught all my life a Christian does not do. Real quick, let me also interject before I get into what those things are. Being raised in Judaism and Christianity, I could tell you that Christianity really adds to Judaism but does not take away. So I also view myself as Jewish as well, but I view myself as more Jewish than the average Jew for seeing in Isaiah when God talks about, when I revealed to Isaiah the Messiah to come, that Messiah is described as Christ. And this is all throughout the Old Testament through the Hebrew Bible before Jesus, the descriptions of the one to come being Jesus, right? Even as early as Genesis, story of Adam and Eve and everything. So, I don't take away by me zoning in and focusing in, talking about Christianity, that encompasses Judaism as well, because most of the Christian Bible is the Jewish Bible. The Old Testament is larger than the New Testament. Anyway, so get back to these things that I was always taught and had in my brain that a Christian couldn't be. First off, this guy, John Wolf, had long hair, very long hair, this teacher of mine, like down to his ass, right? And I was always taught that there's a scripture that says it's a shame for a man to have long hair. He found out he was a fan of certain things like Beavis and Butthead or Howard Stern. He was familiar and would recite NWA lyrics. Now, these are three things that are certainly anti-Christian, right? Beavis and Butthead's a dirty cartoon. Howard Stern says dirty things. NWA says dirty things. But yet, he was a fan of this stuff. Another thing is that he never mentioned God, ever. He was a teacher who would teach certain subjects that I wasn't in his class, but I was in his art class. In his art class, he would teach art. That's what he would do, what he was paid to do, teach art. So I never assumed that he was a Christian at all. Christians, from my view, are supposed to never shut up about it, always beat you over the head about their beliefs and what you're doing wrong and this and that and this and that. So, I just, I would misbehave like crazy in his class. I would totally just, ruin his class with my behavior. And one day, I don't need to give her name, but I still know her name. I haven't seen her in probably decades, but I would still consider her a friend. It was a student in the class, and she had brought the Satanic Bible into class, and this teacher, John Wolfe, was saying, "Hey, stop this! What do you bring that in here?" And somehow the subject got brought up, and I think it was Armageddon, the final battle in the Bible, right? And this teacher's writing on the chalkboard in different languages and translating and teaching this and that about Armageddon and about what it says in the book of Revelation about that. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I've been to churches all my life. Churches, synagogues, other places of worship, mosques. I've never heard anybody put this out there with different languages and translation. I said, what the hell are you doing? You're brilliant. Why are you teaching in this crummy little school, probably getting paid peanuts? You should be a pastor. And by the way, not being a pastor for the money, but nonetheless, you should be a pastor. You know more, I told him this, you know more than pastors in churches I've been to, than any pastor in any church I've been to. Why are you teaching here? And he said, no, trust me, my pastor knows way more than I do. I don't know anything. I'm like, oh, awesome, cool. Who's your pastor? I want to go to church with you. And then I heard the thing that I never thought I would ever hear, ever. He said, I'm not telling you what church I go to. I'm not telling you where I go to church. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to tell? I'm not going to tell you. You're a Christian. You're supposed to be dragging me to church. You're supposed to be doing anything you can to get people. Offer me milk and cookies and candy or whatever the hell. Get me to church, right? That's what you're supposed to do. He's like, no way, dude. Look how you behave in my class. You behave horribly in my class. You think I'm going to tell you where I go to church so you can act like this at my church? No, it's not going to happen. I'm like, please. He's like, no, please, no, please, no. He wouldn't let me. After bugging him for a while, he eventually made a deal with me. He said, look, if you can behave in my classroom for 6 months, then I'll let you know where I go to church. I'm like, 6 months? I'm like, oh, all right. So what I would do, because I couldn't behave all day, I would take the regular MTA, the city bus, to school for just the last period, 7th period art class. I'd behave in his class for 1 period, 1 hour. I could do it. It's art. I enjoy art anyway. Then I would take the school bus home. So I did that for 6 months, and I behaved for an hour a day for 6 months. It was a big deal for me, but I really wanted to go. And I remember he said, listen, okay, fine, but before I let you go to this church, just make sure it's somewhere where you want to go. I'll give you this dates me. This shows you how old I am. I'll give you a cassette tape. Listen to this cassette tape, and I want you to tell me if this is the type of place that you'd be interested in going to. And I listened to the cassette tape, And I've gone on for about 15 minutes already. So rather than keep going, I'm going to start this next episode by telling you what was on this cassette tape that I heard when I was 16 years old, and how the things I heard in just 1 hour changed my life for the rest of my life. And the words that were on that tape will be the words I will cling on to until my last breath. It has inspired every step of my life. I draw back to what was on that tape. So stay tuned. It's going to get very deep, and because of that, I'd rather not squeeze it all into one. So tune in next time, and we will get a little deeper into it. Love y'all.